Hello and welcome to the Tech in the Hood podcast. I'm your host, Ahmed Flex Omar. Tech in the Hood is a storytelling podcast that explores the past, present, and future of Chicago's cultural identity through conversations about community and technology. Each week, I reconnect with the friends and mentors who have shared this journey and spotlight new voices and innovators building the future of the Tech in the Hood. Hey guys, welcome back on the show. Today I have with me my dear friend, Dr. Dominic Gaziano from Body and Mind Medical Center. Dominic, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks, Flex, for having me.
Yeah, it's good seeing you, man.
You too.
Yeah, I mean, I could say a long time no see, but saw you recently at an event that you hosted in the West Loop.
Yes.
Yeah, it was really creative. I think the topic was what, rapid mind reset?
That's right.
Okay.
Rapid Mind Reset.
Yeah,
RMR. Want to brand that?
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So, Rapid Mind Resets. You know, we're in a fast-paced culture, and I've been doing, many years of interviewing patients. I do a lot of talk therapy. There's a lot of stress in the city, and my patients may have they might not be taking their medicines. Hey, you're stressed out. Let's open up. So 5 to 10 minutes, I get intense, and I try to focus on one problem. They may say I have different categories. We talked about it 2 weeks ago at my presentation. There's 10 major categories of stress: relationship stress, work stress, financial stress, etc. We focused on work stress at my presentation 2 weeks ago, but and that's a top stress of my patients. And I say, hey, what's bugging you? It's about getting insight into your stresses. Stop. Why am I feeling lousy right now? Oh, well, okay, bring it to the surface and understand the why. This is Rapid Mind Resets.
I think
got to bring it
someone's
to the
trying
surface
to reach
fast.
you on your phone, Dominic.
Yes.
Yeah. It's all right. It's a life of a busy
I was
doctor.
so into it, I didn't even hear the buzz. So I'm here. So that's okay. We'll let it go for now. And so, yes, it's really about the most important part of this process is you can't solve a problem if you don't understand a problem.
Sure.
To understand a problem, you have to bring it to the surface. Sometimes that's a little painful, but be honest with ourselves. No illusions. What is bugging you? And, in a safe space in my office, I've, been able to bring it to the surface, many things, and understand the why is the next part of it. And then Rapid Mind Resets, there's 3 or 4 common and maybe other interventions you can do at the time: deep breathing, meditation, and there's apps that help us with this. Yeah, okay, go to app, kind of distresses us. Media distresses us sometimes, but sometimes media, there's a common app called Calm that we can go to, and there's nice. I like the rain and the mountain water. That's my favorites. Yeah. And we can listen to that for a little bit after kind of decompress. And you got to say, I got to table some of this stuff. I can't solve all these problems right now. 5 or 10 minutes, you go, and then you reach out to support if you need to. And during that 5 or 10 minute periods, rapid, and it's going from basically Rapid Mind Reset. In summary, is going from a negative state, fear, doubt, anxiety, worry, an intervention, a realization, to a positive state, peace, and de-stress.
Okay. So you're internal medicine, right?
Yes.
Okay. So why would someone listen to you as opposed to a psychiatrist or a psychologist?
Okay. I'm going to explain a little bit what internal medicine is, because people think I'm a surgeon, and I'm not a surgeon. I do minor surgery, sutures and stuff, every once in a while, but that's not too many other minor. But internal medicine is
so you don't make visits at hotels if people have accidents?
No,
okay.
I don't. I'm an adult primary care doctor.
Got it.
So the main doctor you go to, but I'm hospital-based, so I take care of patients in the hospital as well. But basically, an adult primary care, that you go to. And, I through the years, and it's been a problem. You can't get a patient to a psychiatrist. They may need it. Sometimes it's just stress. Sometimes they have general anxiety disorder. Sometimes they have panic disorder. And I need to help them counsel at that moment.
Sure.
And of course, I refer them out to psychiatrists for some more serious issues. But a lot of primary care, 70% of mental health is taken care of, or at least attempt to take care of in primary care. And I would say it's not always taken care of effectively in primary care. I try to do my part to address these issues and help the patient out on a path toward taking care of these stresses before they get too bad. And they are affecting their diabetes, their high blood pressure, their asthma, because they're not taking their medicines, and their sugars are going out of control. And say, hey, you know what? We could deal with the stress. Also, you got to get help. I want to help get your body in order. But right now, the first thing, as a primary care doctor, I have to prioritize. I got to get your head in order first. Deal with your stress, and then we'll help you get your other physical problems in order too.
All right. Well, that's good. That's good to know. I mean, with the event itself, going back, to that, right? So
Sure.
It was really different. I mean, you and I have done a number of events, for our group of friends, and also the complete, strangers, that are
Sure.
medical events, but they're also networking. So it's like a happy hour event, right? But that event, tell us a little bit about, why did you produce it the way you produced it? Because I do remember there were actors that were involved, and you didn't tell anyone they were actors. So
Right.
Yeah, there was a lot going on. There
well-
was a lot going on there. So it's really interesting to have that, behind the scenes.
Right. So I know theater. I took Second City for a year. I produced little plays when I first came to the city. So I want to do something that I enjoy in this vibrant city. I had a couple professional actor friends that I got involved as plants. And I wanted to illustrate the 5 aspects of work stress. We were talking about work stress. So I was going through my slide presentations, and I had a foreshadowing, which I kind of planted in there. Guy was interrupted when I first started talking. And then later on slide 14, I had a plan. They had a cue. I had 40 slides, 40 minutes, a little bit long, but I usually try to stand off, 30-minute lecture. But I was going there, and there was a cue for this dramatic scene with 2 workers fighting, a boss and a worker, and I was illustrating an aspect of a new boss coming on. That's statistically, this is one of the biggest stresses in work. You don't know your responsibilities when a new boss comes in. Yeah. And there was poor communication there was high workload, there was a work-life balance issue, all the things that are top things that cause statistically workplace stress. I illustrated it best with these 2 wonderful actors, and there was a moment, I think, that a few people, including you after, said that they wanted to pull those guys away from me. They were interrupting my lecture, but then they got it. People got it was part of the show. And I think it was probably one, and I'm going to do some more of this because it was so well received. These guys are good, And I got.
They're professional actors.
They're professional. They were in movies together back in 2005.
So one of the guys was sitting down, and he's just not interacting with anyone. But he looked like he was busy. He was working, and
yes.
And then the other guy was, his boss. So it was fascinating to see the interaction. Now, did you put together a script for that, or how did that happen?
I scripted it about a week before the presentation. We rehearsed 3 days before on Zoom. And these guys were such professionals. They wanted to do another rehearsal the day of. I was rounding at the hospital, and I helped them set it up a little bit. And
so in between patients, you're...
Yes. Well, this is common. I switch up. Switch up. Like one of my doctor colleagues calls me Dr. Switch because he sees me switching up in the hospital.
Sure.
And I switch to some of my passions.
Yeah.
You have your vocation.
Sure.
Which is me, medicine. It's always most important. And then my avocation, my passion, these other projects for production, and presentation, et cetera.
Yeah.
And sometimes during the day I take a moment and I have to attend to some things like, a lot of people that have these, you can call it a side hustle, but I think it's a little bit more for me and some other people. It's a passion of mine that I love. And
balancing the right and left brain.
Yeah. One thing about that is that it's something that you're excited about, and I don't get burned out in medicine. I've been doing medicine for a long time.
Yeah.
Some of my colleagues are really cynical by now, and I haven't gotten cynical yet. And I actually know the signs of burnout.
COVID didn't do it?
No.
Okay.
Didn't do it. COVID did. No, actually,
I mean,
no.
COVID actually increased your creativity.
I take that back, but I did a book during COVID on COVID, a doctor's guide from pandemic to new normal, helping people, get back to normal after this pandemic and understanding the pandemic, what's happening. Mm-hmm. And, I think that, during these, COVID was very stressful for me, taking care of actual COVID patients and really, really knowing what it is. And it did take a few months to get back. I think all my colleagues, went through this period of intensity, this strange thing that we felt helpless with as it's coming on. I mean, in the introduction of my book, I talk about one of the dramatic scenes when I'm trying to go in to the hospital and I'm watching YouTube videos from the Ebola epidemic on how to do PPE because I wanted to get it right. Because I heard doctors were dying, like 70 of them died in Italy because they got one little slip in their glove and COVID got in and they died. So I'm saying, oh God, I got to get this right. And I remember doing the fit tests, they're called, getting the PPE on with the nurses at St. Mary's Hospital, one of the main hospitals. I go, I said, do I have this right? Do I have this right? She says, yeah, you're fine. You're fine, Dr. G. I go, no, do I have this right? So my life depends on it. I got to put this on correctly.
And you had access to PPE? Because
we did. Okay. The hospitals I was at were pretty good.
Okay.
Some were better than others, but about the PPE situation, but we had adequate PPE. And some of the long-term care places, although in the city of Chicago that I saw, the rehab places did not have as much, and they got it later. But it was just you did the best you could, during those times.
No, absolutely. I mean, when I was with my not-for-profit NGO Mala, we distributed masks to clinics and hospitals in the South and West Side, and there was a big shortage.
Oh yeah.
So I know you've done work in those communities.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of the work? I think was it health? The health in the hood, or what is it?
Well, yeah, you're close. You got the hood thing going on. Tech in the hood. I like your branding there, but it's not. Mine is not the hood. Actually, it's close though. I've had this charity for about 12 years. It's called Health in Your Neighborhood. Okay. Health in Your Neighborhood. Basically, using your resources that already exist in your neighborhood, but pointing them out and how to use them in the right way, authoritatively. So we did. I did a couple in the south side of Chicago, one in the west side, and one in Uptown.
So are these events where you go to the community and how is it a weekday event? Is it a weekend event? How's it set up?
It's a Saturday event because that's when I have a little more time. Sure. Usually a day event on a Saturday, and I got other volunteers in healthcare to help do screenings for blood sugar checks, for blood pressure checks, for wellness. Talk about the wellness tenets, including fitness, getting adequate sleep, etc. One of my most memorable ones, and I started writing an article about sunny days in Inglewood. Like I would go down, it was a sunny day, and it was just interesting. Every day I go down, and I would see a different side of Inglewood that I've never seen. I went in the wellness class of an Inglewood high school down there, and I asked them about stress they had. I'm very surprised that some were stressed of getting into college. One was about a golfing scholarship, but others were about some serious city issues that they had. And we kind of brought it up and how to deal with it in the city, and I was help reflect. And I invited all them to the event I had at a community center in Inglewood. I ended up landing through some friends to Bears players, and they loved that, and it was a good day long at a community center in Inglewood that the high school students came and their families, and we had some little fitness games, and everything, and so that's an outreach that I enjoy doing. And basically, I think I realize there's limited resources sometimes in these communities, and I say, you have resources down there. Let me help you connect them, get you some information. It's about the right information presented in the right way for the resources already down there. That's sort of what my outreach was about. And my goal at one point was to do all I believe there's 78 neighborhoods in Chicago now, all 78, and I've done about 6 so far. So I'm working on it. Yeah, that's my project.
It'll get there. It'll take some time. So,
yes.
Do you recruit volunteers, other doctors and nurses from other hospitals for these events when you put them together? I mean,
yes.
Different departments. So I'm just curious.
Well, it sounds crazy, but I'm on staff at 8 hospitals. I'm an independent practitioner.
Wait, what? How many?
8, but it's not as bad as it sounds. So I'm active about 4 or 5 at a time.
Okay.
But
and they all know that? I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Well, I always say that, I'm at my favorite hospital, but they're all my favorite.
Okay.
I mean, they're all like my children, right? You got to say that.
In case they were listening,
Exactly. In a way, they're all favorite, and they're on their own. Hospitals are like little cities.
Okay.
There's a mayor, administrator, and there's, I think it's the whole new environments that have the same character for years. Sure. And you work with the systems in the hospitals, and some computer systems work better than others, and it takes a little longer at some hospitals. But so I went to my community in the hospitals, and I have, just asking, I'm rounding, hey, you want to volunteer? I'm going to do this. And my rehab facilities, I go to a few of those, and I have several from there, that would volunteer, and to do nurses, LPNs, and other people that would help. Nutritionists and so forth, and get them down there. So yeah, I would just get volunteers that way. Just kind of like a month or 2 before, I would try to round up the right people for that initiative.
Well, if some people that are in the healthcare field that are listening right now, what would you say to encourage them to volunteer? Well,
I think that I think it would be it's very gratifying to go do this and see, in a day interact with people, and some things that the healthcare professionals take for granted that the public actually doesn't know about, pre-diabetes screening. We have a high percentage nationally of people that are pre-diabetic that don't know it. And it's satisfying, passing on that knowledge about that and other wellness, that it's very satisfying day of seeing the satisfaction in families when you do such a program.
So how would you find out if you're pre-diabetic?
Well, I think one way we can do an AccuCheck, we need to follow that up, a finger stick. So these days we're having the monitors on that we put on the chest, but that requires you to be established diabetes. We are moving toward, it's almost barbaric, but we're pricking our fingers, but we're going to have monitors that everyone's going to get in the next 5 to 10 years once insurance kicks in to pay for it. But anyway, doing that to screen, AccuCheck, and then going to get some blood tests, like a hemoglobin A1C, it's an interesting concept, the A1C. It's, you have your red blood cells that live for about 3 to 4 months after they're produced in your bone marrow, and they get coated with sugar, like your breakfast cereal is probably the best example. So those little, Fruit Loops that get coated with sugar, the same thing happens with your blood cells, and they're kind of concave dips, not disc, not like Fruit Loops, but sort of like them, and they get coated with sugar over a period of 3 to 4 months. So there's this little refractometer that analyzes these things after you get a blood sample and tells you your average blood sugar for 3 to 4 months, and it's better for long-term monitoring. So if you have one blood sugar that's up at sort of a screening event, perhaps, or screening in the office or wherever, you got to follow it up. Say, hey, is this a long-term issue, or did you drink a gallon of orange juice and your sugar just shot up? Perhaps, or adrenaline shoots up our sugars too. The fight or flight reflex when we get worry or a real stress, that comes along, a danger, it shoots up our sugar level. So we have to kind of look at this, in aggregate and say, okay, that we want to get the hemoglobin A1C, or glycosated hemoglobin is also, or sugar-coated hemoglobin, if you like, and it's 3 to 4 month average. So that helps us determine if this is a long-term thing, and if it's mild, we can do diet and get it under control. If not, you got to go to medicines, and sometimes you just need medicines. Yeah. And I usually give my patients the time, when they start, we try to get under control. If they don't, we got to go to medicines, and so that's a little bit more about screening for diabetes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that information. And you touched briefly upon, technology and computers.
And tech in the hood. There we go.
There you go.
We got some tech stuff to talk about. Yeah.
We got to talk a little bit about that. So obviously telemedicine is pretty big deal. But we can kind of go back, with your journey, in medicine, right? How have you seen, technology evolve? And no offense, doctors still carry pagers or beepers or whatever. Those old Motorola things that millennials that are listening and Gen Zs have no idea what they are.
Well, actually, most doctors don't have pagers as much these days. Much. They have cell phones with, there's a direct thing that goes, it's called page copy that'll text to your cell phone these days. My paging service got converted to everything's on my cell phone.
You no longer carry the pager?
I do not.
When did you finally let go?
Oh, probably about 7-8 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, some do carry it. Some of the hospital service people that are in the hospital still have it. And so we do have it, but that's so. Other technology in my practice that's evolved, is probably one of the big things is the telemedicine, like you're saying. Mm-hmm. So I started telemedicine visits on a few platforms. One of them was DoxyMe, that a lot of doctors have. It's initial free service for doctors, and you can have a paid version of it, but I started with DoxyMe maybe about 7 years ago, before the pandemic, and so I got up to speed it was a little difficult. For example, and I actually worked with another doctor working under me. We actually did a paper we submitted about when you can use just telemedicine, when you can use a physical visit, and when you can use a hybrid, and what diagnoses are better for each. Now, if, for example, a patient has a bad asthma attack, you got to listen to the lungs. It's a good idea to listen to the lungs, but during the pandemic, we couldn't do. We were isolated, and most doctors' practices, including mine, for about 4 months, where I didn't have patient visits, but I kept the telemedicine going, and we had to do our best about and it was a big issue if you did have an asthma to send them to the hospital or not, because we had a lot of COVID there. It was a very difficult balancing act during that time, about the telemedicine. But so there's certain things like asthma that, that we need to examine the patient and have them there. We want to get the vital signs perhaps to see a blood pressure patient. But we do now have a lot of blood pressure products at home that aren't bad, that are getting better. They're so. So other issues. Now there's things that are okay with telemedicine. And if the patient is set up at home and they do have their blood sugar monitors and everything, and a lot of them do, and they want to tell me the blood sugars over the month I saw them, so we need to adjust their medicines by mouth or their insulin, and I can do that telemedicine. It's not that bad.
So they would have to have certain equipment in the house.
Yeah.
In the house.
And we're getting much better. The definition of telemedicine actually is a phone call too. I do a lot of just phone calls, a lot of times, because some of my elderly patients can't hook up to DoxyMe, and they struggle.
Telecommunication.
Yeah, and we do a phone call with them sometimes, and we're able to get by a lot of good information with the phone call, because I've done it for a while and I know what I can do, and then sometimes at the end of the phone call or at some point, say, hey, you just got to come in and see me, and I try to find a time soon, depending on what the issue is. Yeah. And we got to see you. But in general, a lot of this we can do with telemedicine, a phone call or a video visit or a combination of those. And sometimes I have a service now that they can text me pictures. I just had a patient last week that texted me some pictures of a toenail. It sounds gross, but it ended up being a fungal infection. And I saw the picture and I said, oh yeah, okay, you need to go to a foot doctor and get that thing taken care of, because no medicine I'm treating is going to, that it was pretty advanced. And so, so I need to the pictures, that's another form of telemedicine.
Mm-hmm.
So telemedicine means phone calls, pictures, and I have a HIPAA-compliant texting service that I can get a picture, and from them. And so I get that. Other things that are becoming more advanced right now are the glucose meters. If they actually have it on them, we can actually sign up for the Dexcom or the Freestyle Libre. We can in real time before they even come. I can see the trend in their blood sugars, on a web-based app that open up that they share with their doctor. They can actually share it with like 5 other people, family and friends, so they know if there's an urgent blood sugar, the other people are notified, which is really nice technology. That is, they put it either on their shoulder or their chest, the little monitor, the Dexcom monitor, and they can either from their phone or another device they get with the machine, a little monitor, they can read the blood sugar themselves and tell me over the phone, or I can get it web-based before they come. And it's I think this technology we're going to see more and more the next 5 to 10 years. Not all insurance accepts it, especially like public aid. It's not, some you have to have, most of the time you have to be on insulin before you can get this because it's expensive.
Sure. Dexcom just launched this year, I think their version 7, which is really sophisticated. It's smaller, it does more things, it's faster at doing sugars. They're advancing the technology on Dexcom and Freestyle Libre. And I think more and more we're going to have this in real time to see this. The other things are the heart monitors that you can get sophisticated heart monitoring, including EKG tracings, also web-based, in the doctor's office. Yeah.
And home care companies help set these things up. And home care companies have packages of different telemedicine things, usually the heart stuff, and you can get blood pressure monitoring virtually too. So that's another form of telemedicine that's out there. That's
do you see wearables playing a role?
Yeah, so the Fitbit, those kind of things.
Apple Watch, yeah.
Apple Watch. Oh, the Apple Watch is getting more sophisticated. It shows tracings of EKG. There's programs there that the Apple Watch has that patients have shown me and learned that had arrhythmias. And I have a patient in his 50s that shows me regularly what the Apple Watch does. And I'm able to see is the range, a low heart rate, like below 60 is normal. And it's called bradycardia or slow heart rate. Another patient has that issue. And we're modulating that with some other medicines, and we see an improvement. There's other ones the cardiologist or I sometimes will prescribe called a Holter monitor that they wear for a month and they bring in later. And you can analyze this actually if there's, the company sends in if we think it's necessary to monitor it in the doctor's office or not. They can just bring it in after a month. So all these things are becoming, there's some that are, for the consumer, the patient, and some that the medical community has had for years that are becoming more advanced.
Gotcha. No, that's really interesting, and you're going to see a lot of that with the future of healthcare.
Yes. Yeah. It's advancing all the time. These different telemedicine applications.
Sure. And then so going back to a little bit of your creative stuff, also you're a writer.
Yes.
Yeah, so you mentioned your book during COVID. Do you have another book that's more recent? Or?
Well, the books I've done, I did one back in 2007 was my first, was Feel Good Health, which was a very upbeat book on tips for healthy living. It was broken up into seasons, the different things you can do each season, and in 4 categories, including fitness, nutrition, and then fitness and nutrition, preventative care about the doctor stuff, healthy psychology. So that was a nice little workbook that I did for years, but in 2018 is my book that I'm pushing mostly these days, which is a handbook of health, called Well Now, and it talks about a little tougher stuff like I talked about a little bit ago about when you have what I call the roadblocks to your health and stress related things, and how to identify those. It has the tenets of wellness that a handbook has, all the things that for your wellness. It has how to deal with emergencies, how to deal with insurance, which has become more difficult lately, the truth is, and it's another story I was dealing with today, but how to deal with insurance and how to get the most out of insurance, picking insurance and maintaining your insurance, and then how to research your health, which is very important, with all this false information, which actually is a good lead into my other book, which is 50 teaspoons of medical information to remedy medical misinformation. 50 teaspoons of truth to remedy medical misinformation is that book, which I did as a cartoon book that people really like. A lot of my students like that, and it shows 50 myths that we have, and this predates the COVID pandemic. That we talk about vaccines and different things that myths.
You mean the time when people were getting medical degrees on YouTube?
Yes, and they still are,
okay.
and it's very scary actually. I mean, there's a quote from the New York Times. Political misinformation threatens our democracy. Medical misinformation threatens our lives. And this is a bit serious because it is this very serious problem that was magnified during COVID. And more people died because of medical misinformation. I'm going to tell it flat out. And I know these stories. I did my part to battle against that. And I encourage people to do the right thing during COVID, the pandemic, get the vaccine, et cetera. And I can answer 100 questions about the vaccine, but it is something, and I told the doctors working under me, there's nothing you could do more in your whole career, I believe, than tell people to get the vaccine. And I did it to hundreds of people. I lectured, I did videos in mostly the nursing homes. There's 5 nursing homes. I was COVID director, and it was a battle to get the staff vaccinated, but I got many staff vaccinated, and I think that helped, perhaps in those environments to curb, keep COVID at bay as much as possible in an environment. There was a lot of the most severe environment were nursing homes during COVID. And so it's a serious thing, medical misinformation, that I wrote a book about. I was passionate about it. And then the other book I mentioned was on COVID, A Doctor's Guide from Pandemic to New Normal. And I go through, things about what the actual virus is and what it is not, and and to understand this, and I believe knowledge is power. That people sometimes want to hide from that because it's unpleasant or whatever, but we can get through that part of understanding this unpleasantness of different concepts. And but that book, it did promote the vaccine as well, and it actually helped. There's a chapter on stress and dealing with COVID stress. We get media COVID stress and other stress we have with medical
PTSD from COVID.
PTSD from COVID, yeah.
Yeah, because right now there's a lot of return, to work policies and future of work and hybrid and so on. So do you get
one of the
business owners reaching out to you, telling you, hey, how do I keep my office safe?
Well, yes, actually, I've done some occupational stuff with COVID too. Like the lab company I was working with, I helped put together a program that was used in a couple schools, and how to test for COVID, and so they could work, could go back to school, and a program of that. And there was when they were out of school for a period of time, there were pods they were teaching at home that I helped with those pods and how to, if one person gets COVID, what to do, et cetera. So, there's a lot of thought that sort of has to go in, whether it was a PCR or rapid test, in understanding the protocols to go back to work. And I had to tell people on telemedicine that you can't go to work. And I had this one senior executive from the airlines one time that was not happy what I was saying, but I just said, hey, you can't. And, but he understood after a period of time, it just, those kind of things we're responsible. But there's right now where we are with COVID, if one of the update, I think we have a lot of natural immunity around and a lot of vaccine immunity around. COVID is still serious, but it's because I think probably 95 to 97% of us have been exposed to COVID. It's not a new thing to our immune system, that our immune system understands it, whether you've been vaccinated or not. And I still have colleagues that have getting COVID this year, and it's like one was knocked out for 4 to 5 days, and other people were relatively asymptomatic. So it still can be a nuisance, if nothing else, but it's always a serious condition that we have to take. Even now, as we move, and you have to understand, what the recommendations for boosters, and I call it booster hesitancy now. There's vaccine hesitancy, we got booster hesitancy, and we
gotta get boosted every year, or how does that work?
Okay, it's a common question I get. Okay, I get questions asked like this, like, "Oh, doc, why do I have to get boosted? I just got it like 6 months ago." And they might be elderly, like one of my patients, 60, 70, and they have medical conditions, serious medical conditions that COVID can affect them adversely. And I tell them, well, you get your teeth cleaned every 6 months. We don't really talk about that, and that's what we're recommended, to do. And I think the more important question is, this vaccine is going to help me. How often do I have to have it? And and I've had some people that had breakthrough infections that didn't get boosted. In many examples this year, and most of them did not get, as ill. But it's turn the question around, like, okay, we have this amazing vaccine that is truly amazing, and vaccines are safe. If you look at vaccines, they're safer as a class the last 50 years than some of the antibiotics we take. Why don't we worry about those? Because we want our sinus infection done right now. We want it taken care of. But Augmentin has more side effects than the vaccine. But we don't worry about that. Vaccines are very safe and effective in general as a class. And COVID vaccines have been studied, the Moderna and the Pfizer specifically, the mRNA vaccines. And they have had the test of time to say safe. We got off on a tangent, but I think it's an important tangent here.
No, I mean, it was very recent. I mean, it was very traumatic.
Yeah.
Came out of nowhere. The world, stopped. So I think it's important for us to have these, conversations about this, about this topic, and not wait for the next time it also, happens, and also be prepared like we were, so.
Yeah, I want to say one other point in general. Like, people have hesitancy. I want to help them. I want to talk to them face to face. If anybody has want to reach out to me, it's fine. I want to understand their concerns. I'm not saying, some people are just not going to want to get a vaccine or any other treatment, for example, in medicine. But if we logically look through it and look at fears or other influences that they had, and I think it's a lot about influences we're influenced by a club mentality here, but we want to talk about truth and try to, like I just said, the stress, bring truth to the surface. Yeah. Look at yourself, no illusions, your stresses. Medical other vaccines and other medical treatments are the same. You might be fearful of that. I had a patient just last week that was fearful of getting a cardiac catheterization. She had serious heart condition that the blood flow was compromised, but perhaps a blocked artery. And I had to convince her, and over a couple of days, and she did go through with it, and she was treated effectively. And we found a blockage. We treated it immediately, but she was just needed a little extra talking and understanding, about the procedure. Just like anything we should try to work with people and not give up on people, and try to understand the truth in the end.
And I mean, technology as a tool is a double-edged sword, right? So you can use it for good, or you can use it for, ulterior motives, So how do you use technology in your practice?
Okay. Well, in my practice, the biggest technology thing is telemedicine I mentioned, but also I prescribe medicines electronically. Let me give you an example of that in healthcare. Actually, I do, sometimes prescribe controlled medicines, and there's an authentication that I have to, a verification for controlled substances that I prescribe, that we go through, that we set up, that, so prescribing medicines electronically has, I think, really revolutionized a lot of healthcare, you can get the medicine. You can do a telemedicine visit. Like during the pandemic, it was great. And we can, when these antivirals came out, we can prescribe someone who has to isolate medicine, and the Paxlovid medication from Pfizer, perhaps, or other medicines, of course, blood pressure medicine, anything, that we can get them electronically. And it happens it's like 10 o'clock at night, I'm at home and patient needed extra medicine. I can do it at home, just open up my vendor's Practice Fusion, which is the most popular in the country for electronic medical record. And I can prescribe that medication, confirm the pharmacy with them. And now there's another interesting innovation that a vendor came to my office. They have you can send the medicines home electronically, which is great for some of my geriatric patients. And you can open it up and send the medications at home for there. And it's sometimes it's same day or the next day. Some urgent meds, if they want to pick them up, we don't necessarily use that, but it's available to my patients. So.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's really that's really interesting, and we're gonna see more and more innovations there. And so, what new projects are you working on right now? I mean, you're at 4 books, So what's new on the horizon?
Well, 2 main ones.
Yeah.
I got things percolating. I like to do that. Like I said, it makes me happy in between, being a doctor and you have your passions that keep you going.
Sure.
And my biggest one is the RMR, Rapid Mind Resets. And how I want to use that is I want to create a video series that explains this, process and put it on the web, and go through with some literature with the video for people to look at it and go through and learn about how to rapidly control their stress. And stress, especially in America, is we're a pressure cooker, and it's a big part. And using, again, the work stress as an example.
Yeah. So, I mean, in tech, right, and entrepreneurs and mental health, maybe recently we started seeing more people, talk about it. I mean, and you focused on work, stress. So,
yes.
What advice do you have for people that are dealing with that? Because sometimes there's shame. So, for example, if somebody is a founder of a company, there's supposed to show an aura, certain aura. If they fundraise, maybe when they're investors, to find out that they're dealing with stress or mental health issues and so on. So, what advice would you have?
Well, I think it's I do a stress analysis with my patients. When I see a patient coming in, like one of the most satisfying things.
How do you get them to come in, though?
Well, I don't always get them to come in. Sometimes it's over the phone too, telemedicine, which I do the same thing. And I do the same stress analysis, and I can sense it. Having for many years and sensing, someone coming on and some people are so stressed out. You can cut it with a knife. They walk into my office, or I hear it on the phone. And so I sense that, and I'm talking about their diabetes, asthma, other medical problems, and I sense these things. I said, okay, let's talk about your stress, because and some people open up right away, and some people it takes a little bit, but I'm in a safe place, and I'm a little bit persistent because I want to help them in a safe place, and I say, what are the list of your stresses? I start out with, and they might have. Okay, I give the top 10 categories. I'll go over, some of them: work, financial, relationship. I think there's 2 types of relationship stress: a significant other. Your major support causes you stress. It's a unique kind of stress that is dealt with a different way. And I call the other one friends and family stress, because those are similar relationships that cause you stress. There is environmental stress, which is anything in your environment, meaning your home environment, your commute to work, or commute anywhere, and your work environment if you work. And it can be clutter and et cetera, noise. That's, called environmental stress. And there's work or occupational stress, as we mentioned. And there's media stress. There's a new category that I'm kind of added on as geopolitical stress because we're worried about the world and where it's going, and global warming and war that we have now, so geopolitical concerns. Media stress is one that the last 5 years, it's been a lot talked about, et cetera. And there's been a lot of people have done experimentation about having a week where you totally cut off your iPhone or limit it, and everything, and how much better you feel, with that, et cetera. But media stress like that, and I think a lot of our media is very negative. Unfortunately, environments, I talked about this at the lecture briefly, but it's that we somehow think that we have to be edgy and dark. In some communities that's respected or, think it's cool, whatever. I don't think it's cool and it's not healthy, to be honest. That's my opinion. No, it's negative, information. I'm not saying be unrealistic or Pollyannic and sweet all the time, but I'm just saying it's actually not good for you. You're not good for your creativity to be so negative all the time. And we have these negative things that are perpetuated on the web, and they say that there's very little, not as much positive impact. So people have that diet of that all day long, between social media and a lot of other media on television, et cetera. And it's not. I
mean, scrolling on TikTok and Instagram Reels and all that could be a form of addiction.
Right. What is addiction? It's the same kind of thing. Actually, there's been studies on this. The dopamine hits we get by opening a social media post is very similar to drug addiction. That the hits that we get, the dopamine surges, and it's the same kind of, it's dealt with in very similar ways medically, and how to wean yourself off that addiction. You have to be able to. Social media is wonderful and it can provide so many wonderful things. And not to say it's all negative. It's not.
Sure.
But there is a lot of my patients. I ask them, you're supposed to. Pediatricians have known this for decades. That you have to take a media history. This is before social media, television, radio, whatever they had. The diet of that, is there a lot of negativity for children or violence or whatever, and it does affect their development.
But the kids are getting now used to iPads at a very early age.
Yeah, and they are. And I'm saying, we kind of have to look at that. And I'm saying, we have to understand what the kids and ask them questions about. Of course, what we should do is like, what if you can't totally censor all this?
Yeah,
it's not possible really. But you have to ask them about every once in a while, what they're getting. But I'm going to say for adults as well, and we have to get perspective. So getting back to the example of my patients coming in, you ask, how do I do a stress analysis? And I see, but we focus on the top stress for that day. And the next day, if we conquer it, we might focus on, I list those. Like there's 6, okay? I'm going to focus on your work stress. Okay, I say, what is this? Oh, you have a passive-aggressive boss. Okay, fine. Let's deal with that. Tell me more. Why does it bug you? What can you do? And some things we can't do everything at that time.
Yeah.
It says, and you got to give your mind a break. That's obsessive. So you got to give your mind a break. I'm not saying ignore that stress. Things coming at you can't ignore. You got to deal with a lot of times we got to table them. What we can do? Well, you need for that particular stress. I'll tell them you need informational support. Maybe someone within your job, and someone outside your job. So yes, and sometimes we need to play music like that, because it's soothing, but there's apps for that little Tinkerbell music we just heard. That was a good example. So, there are apps actually that have soothing sounds that I mentioned in my lecture. So that was right on cue. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's about analyzing these things, and getting to the root of them, and then informational support perhaps for the job, someone in your work environment, and then someone outside of your work environment, maybe for perspective. But most of the people, this is the sad case. This is sad. Most people have no friends. A lot of people don't have any friends or family these days, and they're isolated. I'm seeing more and more of that, older or younger.
I think there was in the UK, there's a minister.
Yes, there's a minister of loneliness in the UK. It's like a cabinet level position. So the Brits have it right. They're taking it seriously. They have a cabinet level position to deal with loneliness. That is true. When I wrote the book Well Now, I talked about that too. We have an epidemic of global loneliness, and it's only getting worse because of partly because of social media. We're not really communicating with people. There's certain skills that I see lacking that we're not lacking 10 years ago, and how to communicate, with each other, because we're not communicating with human beings as much. So that presents, and then people to wander and be obsessed. And I can look at people walking in my office and says, "You live alone, don't you?" "Yes." "How did you know, doctor?" I can tell by the way they talk, and they're in their head all the time. So I say, okay, I give them homework, old or young. I says, "You got to make one friend before I see you in a month. What do you like to do? Go out, and it's a big city." "Okay, fine." Go out, and they're like 40, 50, 60. I says, "I don't care how old you are. You got to have some support."
And it's getting harder too with remote work or hybrid work, or relationships that people would build, in the office. I mean, even in the workplace, it's tough to build like workplace culture on Zoom.
Right. It's tough, but you know what? There's so much negativity. People think like, "Oh, I can't build a friend. I can't. That friend that I just had left, and I'm not going to find." No, come on. Okay. There's one concept that I like to talk to my patients too. It's called green flag, red flag. Okay, green flag, red flag. We all know what red flags are. They're negative personality characteristics that people have that we watch out for. "Oh my God, I missed that red flag when I had that business relationship, and now he swindled me out of all my money."
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Yeah, learn from that, the red flags, but look at the green flags. And you start noticing good things. Even like I go like Home Depot, I was like, this service person was just so amazingly to find some crazy little bracket that I needed to fix a fence at my home, and she was just wonderful. She helped me find that, and it was a green flag that I saw in this person. Seems like a wonderful person, but other people you meet, like there's positive characteristics that they went out of their way to be nice to you.
Yeah. So it's called Trader Joe's.
Trader Joe's. The friendly neighborhood Trader Joe's. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, when you're talking about red flags and, green flags, I mean, you were a restaurateur, and that's how we met. And the other day you gave a nice, quote. Do you want to say that?
What was it regarding?
Oh,
okay. I think I know you. Okay.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yes. So I was reflecting upon my years as being a restaurateur.
Yeah.
Which started at the most awful time in about 80 years, like during the subprime crisis in 2009. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to do this. I was passionate about food. I grew up with it. I loved entertaining. I'm having these cool parties that Flex would come to at my home, and different themes, Brazilian, et cetera. And then I thought, well, you know what? I will, try to do a restaurant because I understand people and food and things, and and I had it at my home, but they say, "Don't try this at home." So I should have stayed at home, not tried it at home, because restaurants, being a doctor and a restaurateur during a subprime crisis was tough, and ended up like I did 2 years of a nice wine bar, and I just had hundreds of events and parties and wonderful memories, both pleasant and very tough memories, financially. And then I did the cantina for another 2 years, and then it just became too hard during that period. And for everything going on, managing the employees and the financial problems.
Yeah.
And I think the quote you're getting to.
My Com app is.
Yeah. So we got the Goldilocks moment here too.
Yeah.
That we needed a musical interlude. Thank you for that. To kind of break it up here. So the quote that you're talking about was about the restaurant experience, my whole life experience that I had. I had a dream of doing this restaurant, and I lived it, been there, done that, and I'm glad I did, because it was not a financial success, but it was a life success, because I met wonderful people like Flex and several other people that are still lifelong friends right now. You meet them, and they ended up being true friends. They got, they understood that period that I was going through at that time, and they're friends to this day. And this was like 10 years ago. Okay. So, the quote that you're talking about is, some endeavors will not be a financial success, but they'll be a life success. And there's another kind of quote that comes to mind when we're talking about quotes is, you could win or learn. In the case of the restaurant, I learned. I didn't win financially. Yeah. I did win life-wise. But so you learn that learning lesson was what I should be in my life. That's not my calling, and it was something else. There's many things to do in life. People ask me, and I talk about it romantically a little bit, stories about restaurants. Do you want to go back and have another restaurant? Well, maybe when I have an island, when I own an island, and I'm gonna have a tiki restaurant there. That's when I'm gonna have my restaurant, but not until then. So in essence, no, probably not for a while. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that brings us to our last question, right?
Sure.
What message do you have young people, right, in terms of getting into healthcare and medicine? Maybe someone is a creative human being and wants to become a YouTuber, But so what is your pitch? Because we definitely need more people in healthcare.
Okay, so your question really, let me paraphrase if I understand it. Whether to be like a YouTuber, influencer, which is the most popular profession these days, I believe. It seems like a lot of people are trying to.
It's trending.
It's trending.
Yeah.
Or go into healthcare.
But my time being a doctor was what was trending, right?
Yeah, there was a time for that.
Yeah.
So, well, my father said back in the 50s the doctors were most respected because there's all these amazing advancements coming out, with heart surgery and antibiotics and things, and they just thought doctors were miracle workers. Well, I think they're still miracle workers. No, I'm just kidding. So, no, I think, doctors are part of a system that is I think to be part of, when you really heal someone, you have some knowledge too. And my most satisfying is when I used my mind for a week in a struggle with an infection, and we have to marshal my team, of infectious disease doctors or lung doctors for a pneumonia, and we figured it out, and they walk out like it's just you can't explain it. The satisfaction of using your mind and marshaling a team and working with the patient in a human way is just nothing like it. And healthcare is unique in that. That is one of my best experiences.
So a robot is not going to replace physicians?
I don't think anytime soon.
Okay.
A
lot of AI talk these days. So.
Yeah, I don't know how maybe they can train with bedside manner and something. Right? That'd be interesting. And some cute little robot that cheer people up. I'm all for that. Maybe a hug bot that just hugs people. We need more of that in the hospital.
Yeah,
because it's becoming a little impersonal sometimes. We're so busy.
I'm sure the Minister of Loneliness in the UK is
we need a hug bot.
Yeah.
I'm putting it out there for entrepreneurs that we do need that. Yeah. Because to be honest, sometimes in hospital settings, the compassion, we're trying to get patients in and out. And I tell, just to answer this question, people working under me, at the end of the day, I say, who's the most interesting patient? It says, I'm asking this question because I want you to have a rewarding career and understand what was the most interesting patient today. And I'll be surprised sometimes with their answer. Like, I'm asking that question also to see medicine through your eyes. They might be in their 20s and 30s. They'll see other things that I didn't see. So, just to say, why not an influencer being, versus a doctor, I think that you have, the ability to change people's lives in a way that's very special. And I'm not saying other careers can't do that, and they do. Mm-hmm. But it's a very unique part of a profession that you can. And it reminds me of one other quick story that when I was going through obstetrics rotation as a third-year medical student, my preceptor, almost evangelically, he said, why do janitors, or he used the word janitors, or, why do people, environmental services, or, why do they, cleaners like to work in hospitals? Yeah. And and rather than a warehouse. And we all like thrown for a loop. Like, what is he trying to do? We're doing it. He says, we're just experiencing the miracle birth. Like, then it was really amazing to do that. I delivered like 10 babies, I was the first hand out, during that time. And I was like in awe, but one of my colleagues was rolling his eyes and wasn't into it, and that's why he addressed him. And he says, well, the reason is it's a place of healing. They know that. Anyone that works in a hospital know it's a place of healing. So my point is, if you want, you can make things as meaningful as as can be, and medicine is a field that you can make big impact still. I think always, that's a timeless art that back from the shamans till now, you can, a lot of it was comfort back in the shamans' time. you're actually in Africa. Some of those, they would be insulted if you'd ask them a question to find out a diagnosis. You should know, doctor. It was kinesthetic, and there's a lot of that you can develop, or and make an impact in medicine. And I still think it's it has its difficulties, but it is still a rewarding profession. And I tell some people that are at the age of deciding about healthcare, it's still a rewarding profession. But you got to find, like any job, your own rewards. Find the silver lining in what you do. In medicine, you certainly have an opportunity to do that, and make an impact.
Absolutely. Well, Dr. Dominic, Dr. G, thank you for coming on the show today, and also want to thank you for your service.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure.